Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to talk about the DSi and whether it is a sequel console, successor, or whether it's just a speed bumped pro version of a DS Lite. Now, I've always been a massive fan of the DS Lite, and it's only been up until the last 6 months that I bought some DSi's because I really couldn't see the point in them. I just thought they were DS Lites really with a few extra features, which would make them sort of pro consoles in the terms of PS4 and the PS4 Pro. The PS4 Pro, it had nothing unique to it except a bit of a processor increase, but nothing exclusive to it. So I would call that as a pro console. But look at the DSi, and if you look into the hardware differences between the DS Lite and the DSi, you'd find that yes, it's got a speed bump. It's got a 133 MHz processor, which is twice as fast as the DS Lite, and it's got 16 meg of RAM, which is 4 times the amount of the DS Lite, and it's got built-in cameras, built-in SD card slot, onboard storage, its own little operating system, which the DS Lite didn't, and that still doesn't make it a successor. But the thing that makes it a successor, I would say, is the fact that there are DSi exclusive games. These are games that will not play on a DS, and while there aren't many of them, I think there are about 6 physical releases of DSi exclusive games. There were a lot of games that were released as a DSi enhanced title. You could play them on the DS, but you would get a better experience on the DSi, and some of those were ones that took advantage of the fact that the DSi had cameras, but they're not DSi exclusives. They are similar to the black Game Boy cartridges, which were in colour if you played them on the Game Boy Color, but also played on the original Game Boy in mono. DSi enhanced games would play on both. You just had a bit of an advantage if you played them on the DSi. So the fact that the DSi has got some exclusives, and there were a lot more exclusives available on the eShop than there were physical releases, would put the DSi as a successor to the DS Lite. And even myself, a huge fan of the DS range, didn't really get where the DSi was going, couldn't really see the point of it up until sort of a few months ago, and it really shows that Nintendo missed the point there. You've got a successor there which has got quite beefier hardware than its previous generation, but Nintendo really missed the point with just not releasing enough DSi exclusive to show the rest of the world and rest of the gaming world and those already with a DS or a DS Lite that the DSi was worth upgrading. And it's always that little console in the middle. I went from a DS Lite to a 3DS, and that is a huge jump, but bang in the middle there is the DSi, which, yes, it had some fantastic features. I mean, the cameras were a nice little thing back in 2009, but they weren't enough to pull existing DS Lite owners away from their consoles. With the DSi being fully backward compatible, if you were new to the DS range, then go for a DSi, unless you were looking for Game Boy Advance capabilities, because that's one thing that the DSi did drop from previous generations. But the DSi really was a bit of an odd console sandwiched in the middle. Technically, it's a successor to the DS Lite. When the 3DS came out, it could play all of the DSi titles and all of the DSi exclusive stuff, so it really squashed the DSi, and that's why I think it's kind of lost in there between the DS Lite and the 3DS. And to answer my original question, is this a pro console or a successor? Yes, the DSi is a successor to the DS Lite in the fact that there were stuff that you could do on it that you couldn't do on the DS Lite, so it then doesn't make it a pro console, which is just a speed bump but without giving it any extra real advantages. So there you go, the DSi is a successor to the DS Lite in a true sense, but it really just missed the mark. But saying that, I do love the DSi. I love my DSi LL. I think it's probably the best go-to console if you're looking to play DS games. So let me know what you think. Did you buy a DSi at the time, or did you hold out on a DS Lite? Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.